Okay, picture this. It's late. 11:47 p.m., December 15th, 2024.
Right.
And the internet just ignites, all from a single Instagram post. It kicked off, well, the biggest celebrity feud of that year. You remember it?
Oh, absolutely. Hard to forget that one.
So today, we're doing a deep dive into what we're calling the celebrity feud and the silent victory.
Yep.
We've got all the sources, and we're going to unpack it.
Yeah, try and figure out the really key takeaways.
Exactly. The mission here isn't just how it happened, but why one side won so decisively, and what it tells us, about communication now, power, especially online.
It's fascinating because it really does strip bare how fast personal stuff can become this huge public drama.
Totally.
And maybe more importantly, how different ways of handling conflict just play out so differently when, well, everyone's watching.
Absolutely. So let's rewind. Go back 3 months before that post.
Okay.
We're in L.A., a nightclub. Pretty standard scene.
Okay.
And there are these two young women. Their paths hadn't really crossed much before.
Not in any meaningful way, no.
But they're about to be the main characters in this, like, digital war. First up, Alabama Luella Barker. She's 17, but already 12 million followers. A social media empire, basically.
And the background is key, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Travis Barker's daughter, Kourtney Kardashian's stepdaughter.
Yeah.
Fame was just her starting point. She wore it with this, casual confidence.
That birthright fame, as you called it, is a completely different perspective. Born into the spotlight.
Right.
It means you understand the game, maybe intuitively, in a way someone who fought for visibility doesn't. It's less about learning the rules and more about just existing within them.
And the contrast is just stark.
Yeah.
Because across the room, there's Danielle Bregoli, Bhad Bhabie,
Yep.
21. And she didn't inherit fame. She clawed her way there.
From that Dr. Phil moment, yeah. Wild trajectory.
Totally wild. Turned it into a multi-million-dollar rap career.
Yeah.
But her success, it felt, I don't know, harder won. Maybe more fragile.
Definitely seemed like it needed constant defense. Constant noise, almost.
That's a good way to put it. Noise and attitude. So you have these two paths, born into it, fought for it. What does that immediately suggest about how they might handle, say, a conflict?
It suggests almost opposite approaches. Danielle's brand was confrontation, leveraging those viral moments. Conflict was, frankly, part of the business model.
A tool.
A tool, exactly.
Right.
Whereas Alabama, she was positioned above that kind of fray. Her value wasn't controversy. It was association with established power, luxury, that kind of effortless cool.
And that night in the club, sources say barely a glance, a polite nod maybe.
Parallel universes?
Totally. Just existing in the same celebrity bubble, but miles apart. Oblivious to the collision course. So what lights the fuse?
Well, enter Marcus Chen.
Right. Marcus Chen, 22, entrepreneur, old money from luxury car dealerships.
And crucially, the sources mention he collected relationships with social media stars.
That detail feels really important, doesn't it? It's not just a personality trait.
No, it frames him immediately. He sees these relationships maybe as assets, acquisitions. It sets a very transactional tone for what's about to happen.
He wasn't just looking for connection. He was building social currency.
Precisely. Enhancing his own status within that ecosystem.
So Danielle meets him first. Private party, Hollywood Hills. And the sources say she was genuinely falling for him. He was charming, seemed interested in her, not just the persona.
That must have been refreshing.
Totally. They were inseparable for 6 weeks. He seemed stable, successful outside her world. She apparently even talked about, toning down the provocative stuff, thinking about building something real. What did he represent for her then?
He was potentially an escape route, wasn't he? An anchor. For someone whose whole identity was tied up in that noise and controversy, he offered a glimpse of normalcy, a different future. So the emotional stakes for her were already incredibly high. It wasn't just about a guy, it was about a possible life change.
Which makes the betrayal, when it comes, cut so much deeper.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just a breakup, it's the collapse of that hope.
Meanwhile, Marcus has a wandering eye. Sources say he first spots Alabama at a charity gala in November.
Different setting, different vibe entirely.
Completely. She's in a simple black dress, talking business with Kim Kardashian. Marketing strategies for her new sustainable fashion line. Poised, articulate.
So the polar opposite of the fire and chaos people associated with Danielle, Alabama was, what? Cool water and calculated moves.
That's how the sources paint it. And Marcus seems drawn to that. Maybe he saw it as a higher value acquisition.
It signals a different kind of influence, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Sophistication, business savvy, maybe more appealing for his collection.
So he starts pursuing her persistently.
Yeah.
Uses a mutual friend who wasn't actually mutual, apparently.
Classic move.
Likes her posts, comments. Alabama gets thousands of comments. She barely notices him at first. Sees him as kind of amusing, maybe a harmless wannabe.
Just noise in her feed.
Pretty much. She only agrees to dinner, the sources say, because Kim mentioned his family might be potential investors for her fashion line.
Ah, so her motivation is completely different.
It tells you everything about her priorities. This wasn't romance for her. It was potential business.
Yeah.
Purely rational, goal-oriented.
Which, looking ahead, is a huge clue about how she'll handle the conflict later.
Right. So the first date, no boo Malibu.
Of course.
Alabama treats it like a business meeting. Talking market trends, manufacturing costs. Marcus is trying to steer it personal.
And she's just not biting.
Nope. Her only Instagram story from the night, a picture of her sushi. That's it. No mention of who she's with.
Wow. In an age of constant relationship broadcasting, that's a statement.
It really is. What does that tell you?
It screams detachment, control. She wasn't performing the date for her followers, or even for him. She was just having sushi. He wasn't important enough to make the grid, even implicitly. That's a power move, whether conscious or not.
Meanwhile, Marcus is already engineering his exit from Danielle. Canceling plans, work emergencies, slower texts.
The fade-out we mentioned, setting the stage.
But doing it in a way that avoids direct confrontation.
Which often creates more hurt and suspicion in the long run. It leaves that vacuum.
And then, boom. The breakup text? Anticlimactic, the sources call it. Danielle puts on a public face, whatever, but privately. Devastated.
Because he represented that stability, that normalcy.
Exactly. That future beyond the Bhad Bhabie persona. Losing him wasn't just losing a boyfriend. It felt like losing that potential future. The betrayal felt enormous.
Understandably so.
And then, the twist of the knife. 3 days later, Marcus and Alabama are papped, leaving a restaurant in Beverly Hills.
Yeah.
Laughing, looking casual.
Ouch. Public confirmation.
Danielle sees it scrolling gossip blogs at 2 a.m. Cold, public betrayal. She starts digging, spends the next week gathering intel.
The intelligence gathering phase. Trying to make sense of it, regain some control through information.
And discovers they'd been talking for weeks while he was still with her. Their thing was developing in parallel. But Alabama, apparently totally unaware of the drama brewing.
Blissfully unaware. Which again highlights the different worlds they occupy, even when their orbits cross. And it sets up Danielle's approach. She's gathering evidence for a confrontation.
Which brings us to the December party. Mutual friend's place. Danielle shows up, ready, armed with screenshots, righteous anger.
Ready for battle.
But then Alabama walks in, late, effortless confidence.
Yeah.
Greets everyone warmly, even some of Danielle's own friends.
Just completely unbothered.
And Danielle watches her work the room and realizes a direct confrontation here. It would just make her look crazy, unhinged.
That's a crucial moment of realization, isn't it?
Huge. She understands the optics. A shouting match confirms the jealous ex narrative everyone's waiting for.
So she has to pivot, adapt her strategy.
Exactly. She needs something more calculated, which leads directly to
The Instagram story.
December 15th, 11:47 p.m. The spark. A photo of a diamond bracelet, presumably for Marcus. Caption. Some people really think they can take what's mine. Cute.
Deceptively simple, no names mentioned.
But just enough context, right? For her followers, for the gossip blogs to connect the dots. What's the genius there?
It's weaponizing ambiguity. She plants the seed, but lets the ecosystem do the work of identification and amplification. It makes the audience feel involved, invested. It's distributed storytelling, really. Spreads way faster than a direct accusation.
And it worked. Within hours, gossip accounts are linking Marcus, Danielle, Alabama. Comment sections explode. Team Danielle versus Team Alabama.
The lines are drawn instantly.
Alabama wakes up. She's trending on Twitter. Apparently bewildered, her first instinct, ignore it. She knows feeding it is often the goal.
A sign of her inherent understanding of that media landscape.
But Danielle, she's feeling the buzz. Sources say her music, OnlyFans, they'd been kind of declining. This controversy, it's a publicity injection.
Right. It plays into her established brand dynamic. Conflict equals attention.
So 5 days later, she escalates. Drops the diss track. Mrs. Whitman.
Using Alabama's middle name, making it undeniably personal.
Brutal track. Attacks her looks, her family's money, her talent, or lack thereof, according to Danielle. Lyrics about privilege, music video with a Travis Barker lookalike.
Wow. Full offensive.
But it also apparently crossed lines for some.
Yeah?
Especially mentioning Alabama's younger siblings. This wasn't just beef, it felt like a full frontal assault.
It was a calculated escalation, definitely. But maybe a miscalculation, too. She's operating by the old rules of hip-hop beef, perhaps? Loudest attack wins?
Yeah.
But she maybe didn't realize Alabama wasn't playing the same game. That kind of direct attack could easily backfire against someone positioned like Alabama.
And that's exactly when Alabama's counter strategy, if you can call it that, kicks in. Swift, subtle.
What did she do?
Basically, nothing. Or rather, she just continued living her life, but louder, more visibly.
Ah, the strategic amplification of normalcy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Post photos from Italy looking amazing, unbothered. Shares behind the scenes from her fashion line, shoots serious, professional, focused.
Showing her priorities lie elsewhere.
And, crucially, gets passed with Marcus at high-profile events. Both looking happy, touched by the drama.
That's the silent victory taking shape. It's not just ignoring, it's actively constructing a counter-narrative of effortless superiority.
She's weaponizing the expectation of a response, right?
Yeah.
By refusing to give one.
Precisely. In a world demanding reactions, silence becomes defiance. It forces the audience to fill that void, and they often fill it with admiration for her composure, undermining Danielle's narrative.
And the internet tide starts to turn. Danielle's posts, the diss track, they start to look
A bit desperate, unhinged.
yeah. Compared to Alabama's serene silence, comment sections shift. More praise for Alabama's maturity, her restraint.
The contrast becomes undeniable.
So Danielle, seeing this, doubles down. Instagram live videos, more details, trying to prove her case.
Which often backfires in these situations.
Our sources say it did. Each attempt made her look more frantic. Like she was fighting this war entirely alone, against someone who wouldn't even acknowledge a war existed.
It's that spiral effect. You amplify, but if the other side doesn't engage, each amplification just highlights your own agitation. The audience sees one person screaming, the other gliding.
Yeah.
The narrative shifts from who's right to who's handling this better.
Then comes the killer blow. Alabama's only public statement on the whole thing.
Okay, what was it?
Not a song, not a video, not some long defensive post. A single Instagram story. 3 p.m. on a Tuesday. 12 words.
12 words.
They always blame the girl he liked more.
Oh, wow.
Devastatingly effective, right? Why?
It's pure psychological jujitsu. It reframes everything instantly. It's not an accusation. It's presented as a statement of worldly wisdom, a known dynamic. It taps into that common understanding of relationships. It suggests Marcus wasn't stolen. He chose. It shifts the narrative entirely, from Alabama, the homewrecker, to Danielle, the rejected one. It completely discredits Danielle's foundational claim with brutal efficiency.
And the impact was immediate.
Yeah.
Brutal, like you said. Danielle's support just evaporated. The narrative flipped. She wasn't wronged. She was bitter.
A complete reversal.
Within hours, Danielle deletes the posts, pulls the diss track. Her team puts out a statement, focusing on new music. Game over.
That is a masterclass in asymmetric digital warfare.
Yep.
Alabama refused to fight on Danielle's terms. Noise, confrontation.
Right.
She chose strategic silence, forcing Danielle to essentially shadowbox in public. The silence wasn't passive, it was the weapon. It made every move Danielle made look worse. Alabama won without fighting, triumphed without stooping.
And Marcus,
Oh,
watching all this.
he got a front row seat, didn't he? Saw Alabama dismantle a rival without breaking a sweat. Sources say it showed him a level of strategic thinking he hadn't seen.
And maybe exposed his own role. His cowardice.
You'd have to assume so. He saw she was playing a different, maybe higher stakes game than he realized. It likely changed his perception of her significantly.
So, in the aftermath, Alabama continues seeing Marcus for a bit, but sources suggest maybe less invested now.
The shine wore off, perhaps? Seeing how he handled it all?
Maybe. She eventually phased him out, called it a useful learning experience, but her fashion line launched successfully, actually aided by the attention.
She turned it around completely, turned the negative into a net positive for her brand. Proof of her resilience, her strategy, a case study in crisis management, really.
Well, Danielle, she vanished from social media for a month.
A necessary retreat, probably.
Came back with a different vibe. More mature music, apologies for the personal attacks in the diss track, never mentioned Alabama again.
What did she learn, do you think?
Seems like a hard lesson about the limits of that old confrontational style. Maybe realizing composure and strategic silence can be more powerful now. It hints at real growth, maybe forced by that public defeat.
A recalibration.
Totally. And this story itself becomes internet legend, people dissecting it for years, proof that silence can be the loudest weapon.
And that core idea, The person who controls their emotional response, who perhaps cares less publicly, often controls the narrative.
By spring 2025, they'd both moved on. Marcus's reputation damaged. Alabama. She wasn't just Travis Barker's daughter anymore. She was her own brand, known for being strategic, unshakable.
She turned the attack into an opportunity. A potential scandal became a triumph. She really did architect the outcome.
Years later, if asked, Alabama just smiles, changes the subject. No satisfaction for the critics.
Samar.
Danielle channels it into music about lessons learned, growth. Both stronger, sure, but...
Only one emerged victorious in that specific battle, and the definition of victory was defined by Alabama's terms: non-engagement, narrative control.
So, wrapping up this deep dive into the celebrity feud and the silent victory, it was this quiet war, wasn't it? Fought with Instagram stories, strategic indifference.
And it really proved the power of not engaging, of controlling the narrative by refusing to participate in the opponent's version of it.
So what does this mean for you listening? Does understanding these dynamics change how you might think about conflict or even just presenting yourself online in this noisy world?
It leaves you with a pretty provocative thought, I think. In a world that constantly screams for a response, is the greatest power sometimes found in strategically choosing not to engage, letting opponents exhaust themselves while you remain untouched, unbothered, and maybe ultimately unforgettable.